Hi folks, welcome to today's Coffee and Colossians. Deepest apologies for yesterday. Not for the first time, I got caught up in an Australian bureaucratic nightmare, and it took me ages to get through that, and I had to dash off to the Getty conference, which was wonderful, and I'll write something about it for you. So apologies for that, but we're going to look at something today that is, to me, absolutely essential for understanding where we're at in our culture, and particularly this question about when people say, well, go on, can you prove God? How do we actually know anything? But before we do that, let me just say that I enjoy being here with my coffee, and you pick up some amazing thing in second-hand bookshops. I was up in Newcastle, and I may have mentioned this, but I'm just so thrilled with this. I got a book by Robertson in a second-hand bookshop near the Hamilton Presbyterian Church, The Life of David Livingstone. And it's so fascinating just reading this. And I'll refer maybe to it later. But then, I don't know, you can see these, 4 of them, Reformed Dogmatics by Bavinck. Now, I've always wanted to have those, but they've been very expensive to get. And my good friend Simon Manchester, who always trolls around second-hand bookshops, was at a book fair up in Crow's Nest and saw these, and I went up. And they were still there, and I got them for a very cheap price. I think, more than just about a quarter of what they're worth, and they're in really good condition. But Bavinck is about philosophy as well, and how we know things, and religion, and everything. And we are still at Colossians 2:8. We're going to do 2 more of these philosophical ones. Because I think this is important. This one, you may wonder about this. It's logical positivism. Now, what does that have to do with anything? And, bear with me. So, let me explain this. I've got a great wee clip for you, by the way, as well. So, what is logical positivism? Well, in the early 1920s, something called the Vienna Group, whose main British or English exponent was a man called A J Ayer, who wrote a very influential book called Language, Truth and Logic. Now, what logical positivism says is this. Just hold on. The only meaningful statements are those that are capable of being verified through sense experience or true simply by virtue of their form and the meaning of the words used. And what we need to have is we need empirical observation, logic, maths, science. Religion and art, philosophy even itself, it's pretty irrelevant. Now, the whole point of this was to say there is no world other than a world which is material. It's naturalistic. There's no room for the supernatural or the spiritual. Now, how that affects us today is simply this, that logical positivism itself has been destroyed as a philosophy, and I'll explain why in a moment. But today, you will still get people say, oh, I don't believe in God until you can prove it, until I can see him with my own eyes. Well, they are adopting a logical positivist philosophy. They're saying the only things I believe in are the things that I myself can verify, or that can be verified. Now, what's wrong with that argument? And why does it enslave rather than liberate? Because Ayer pointed out that a lot of young people brought into this in the 20s and 30s because it seemed to be a liberating philosophy. But it didn't. Why? Well, I'm going to show you this wee clip of an interview that Ayer did with the BBC. I think it was in 1974. It was certainly the mid-70s. So have a look at this.
Not only your book,
yes.
but the whole movement of which your book
yes.
is about, logical positivism.
Yes.
What do you think the influence of that was?
Well,
on
I think
other fields of
there
activity?
was a great emphasis on clarity and a great opposition to what might be called woolliness. There was a kind of injunction to look at the facts, to see things as they are, a bit of humbug. All this is very attractive to young people in any field, and it went with, I think, a general reaction against Victorian hypocrisy, really. This was seen as stripping off. It was the Hans Andersen child, which, as you said in your opening remarks, was functioning everywhere, saying the emperor has no clothes. There he is parading around with these huge robes and so on, and placing us bowed down. And the fact the fellow's naked. And this notion the fellow's naked, which in fact the logical parts were taken to be saying, was very exciting for anyone doing any subject.
And of course, that is enough in itself to explain the huge and passionate hostilities that were aroused against logical positivism.
Indeed.
Authoritarian governments like the communist and Nazi governments banded all together, didn't they? And even liberals were discomforted by it.
Just a little, yes. They thought it was too iconoclastic.
Yes. But now, it must have had actually some real defects. What do you now, in retrospect, think that the main shortcomings of the movement were?
Well, I suppose most of the defects is that nearly all of it was false.
Now, isn't that incredible? The reason logical positivism doesn't work is because it's false. The devil is the father of lies. Falsehood doesn't free people. And why was Ayer admitting it's false? Because here's the most basic problem. If the only statements that are true are statements that are capable of being verified by science, the statement that the only statements that are true are statements that are capable of being verified by science is not verifiable by science. Therefore, it is a self-refuting philosophy. Logical positivism is a self-refuting philosophy. It defeats itself. It's amazing it took intelligent people decades to work that one out. It's like the person who says, there are no absolutes, and you go, you absolutely sure? Well, if they're not absolutely sure, we saw this with the relativism, didn't we, when we looked at that? If they're not absolutely sure, then there could be absolutes. And if they are absolutely sure, then there is at least one absolute. So it again is a self-refuting belief. Now, I think these beliefs do enslave. I think they limit us in so many ways, and they take us away from truth. Now, as I said, I was reading The Life of David Livingstone by Robertson, this 19th century, 1882, I think it was, written biography of Livingstone. And he talks about how Livingstone was in South Africa, and that the Boers there did not appreciate him because he taught a Christian philosophy that all human beings were equal. Livingstone was strongly against the slave trade and strongly against racism. Christian philosophy, the philosophy of Christ, liberates, unlike logical positivism. So what does the Bible have to say about this logical positivism? Well, in a sense, we accept it. We accept the fact that we need empirical observation. So we accept it to the extent that there is a book of nature, we can examine things, we can look at things, we can test things. However, we do not accept it because we do not limit knowledge to our minds and our understanding and our capacity. In fact, in Colossians, we've already found the secret. In chapter 2, verse 3, it says, the mystery of God is Christ, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. All the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. There is a source of knowledge and wisdom beyond the human mind. And that source has can be made known to us through revelation. So I think we understand this concept, don't we? If you want to learn something that you do not know, you go to someone who reveals it to you, who teaches you. Well, what if God has revealed himself, and he has, in his Son Jesus Christ, and revealed Christ to us through the Scriptures? So it's in Christ are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. And it's in that regard that therefore we are set free. We are set free to be who we are meant to be. Men and women, boys and girls, made in the image of God, created for his glory. Not to know Christ is to be enslaved to all the other philosophies of this world. To know Christ is to be set free. All right, folks, God bless you, and hopefully see you tomorrow. This is Tuesday, and once again, apologies for missing Monday. Bye.